Hey guys, it's Ken from Cactus Jam Board Games. Today we're going to be talking about Brass Birmingham. I'm pretty excited about this because this is probably my favorite board game. And in fact, it's the game that probably got me involved with the idea or convinced me that I should think about content creation and talk about board games, because this is definitely a board game that I've wanted to talk about for a long time. So without further ado, we're going to go into the break. On the other side, we're going to do game setup, the board setup for a 2-player game. And we're going to go through the rules as well. It's going to be a very short rules explanation. The game is actually very simple in that regard. Limited number of actions, a few things you can do each turn. The complexity and the intensity of the game comes from the massive decision space that's part of the design of the game itself. So like I said, without wasting any more time, Brass Birmingham game setup, overview, and playthrough on the other side. Okay, let's go ahead and get right into setup and just kind of an overview of the game itself. So in this game, you're going to be building industry, and think of the Industrial Revolution. In fact, the board here is the Black Country. This would be the part of England near Birmingham, hence the name of the game. And we're talking about the year 1770 to 1870. What was happening then? Well, this was the Industrial Revolution, the start of it at least, where factories were being built, coal was being used. The requirement to move resources in this area was very important and very demanding. There were lots of resources. Tons of coal had to be moved around, and then the goods as well. And as a result of the need for shipping all of this material, canals were developed. So in the game itself, it's going to be split up into 2 sections. There's going to be a canal area. That's going to be the first one, where we're building canals on these connections that are shown here on the board. And then once that canal era ends, and we'll talk about how that happens in a little bit, we're then going to do some intermediate scoring. Scores are kept track of on the track that's found on the outside of the board here, all the way around. And then we'll do the intermediate scoring for the canal period. We're going to clean up the board. We're going to remove a lot of the tiles and pieces that are found on the board. And then we're going to switch over to the rail phase. Repeat the game, but essentially start. We're going to have some industry left on the board from the first period, the canal period, but no connections, because we're going to need to build those connections. And those connections in the second part, as the name implies, are going to be railroads. And you can see that there are railroad connections here as well. So the game board itself is split up into the various locations, the city names, where we're going to be building the industries, and then the links between them either being canal or rail. For most locations, it's going to be in either or, depending on what phase or what era you're in. So if you're canal phase, you're going to be, say, building this location right here, this connection right here as a canal. But in the rail phase, when you build here, you'll be building it as a railroad. Certain connections are only one phase or the other. We've got a canal only right here between Burton-on-Trent and Walsall. And then between Cannock and Burton-on-Trent, there's a rail only. So during the eras in which you don't see the connection here, you can't build anything. You can't link those 2 cities using that particular type of link. So like I said, on your turn, you're going to be building either industries or connections on the board here. And then we're going to be doing a lot of resource management as well, and then generating income. And so the income track is also found on the outer board, but it's this inner track right here where you see the coins. And the values do go negative. It certainly can happen. Early in the game, it's almost certain you're going to be taking loans in which you're going to have negative income whenever income is collected. And, it's part of the game. It's just kind of understood. The resources, let's talk about those right now. We've got 2 markets shown over here. Or 1 market for 2 different types of resources. We've got these cubes, the orange cubes and the black cubes. The orange cubes are iron, the black cubes are coal. We're going to go ahead and populate on this side here, the left-hand side, the black cubes representing coal in these various positions. And the market is actually really quite simple, pretty simple mechanism, pretty common mechanism as well. The price of the good is shown next to the good that you purchase. So if you purchase this coal right here, it costs £1. The units of currency here are all going to be in pounds. I'm going to say bucks for sure. That's because that's just who I am, and dollars as well. So it's all interchangeable, but the currency at this time in this part of the world, they use pounds. So £1 to purchase this cube, or if I sell this cube to the market, I get £1. So it's whatever the cube going to that position. You either buy it for that amount or you sell it to the market for that amount. Same thing is true for iron. The only difference is the color of the cubes, the location of where we're going to find them, and the price range. These dots that are found in these locations, these indicate don't put any cubes here at the start of the game. These are left blank, but once play starts, you can use these, occupy these spots. If either of these markets ever get completely wiped out, meaning all the cubes are removed, you can always purchase cubes if they remain on the side of the board here. I got a stash of them. I'm not quite sure that's going to be shown in the view of the camera. I think it is, but if it isn't, I've got a stash of cubes over here. If this market is completely cleared out of iron and there's iron cubes over here, you can take them from this location. The price is going to be £6. Same thing for coal, but the price is £8. There's one other type of resource, and that's beer, and it's shown here with these barrels. And these barrels are going to be found on the board, limited locations, just found in these markets in the peripheral. And then as you build breweries, and there's spots all over the board for building industry, and we'll talk about how that works in just a little bit. When you build a brewery, you're going to be adding a beer to that location. Okay, I've already kind of mentioned there's markets off the board. Well, we need to populate those markets. And in a two-player game, we're going to be working with the bottom half of the board only. And that's these areas here. They're kind of color coordinated. Hopefully this comes across clearly in the video, but we've got purple over here. We've got this kind of orangey color, red. There's a blue color up here, and then a teal color up here. These locations are not going to be available to build, at least not directly with cards in the deck, because in a two-player game, the game pushes you down this way. These cards are just not even in play. But let's go ahead and populate our market. I got a bunch of tiles here, and hopefully I can shuffle them, or at least mix them up. Let me just go ahead and mix them up this way. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that guy there. Okay, what are we looking at? So these blank locations, they don't want to purchase anything. But if you see a type of good here, or a type of or symbol here, in this case it is a good, manufactured goods. So if you see that symbol here, this location, in this case Oxford, wants to purchase manufactured goods. Okay, so if you have some on the board that you can sell, this is who you sell them to. You send them to Oxford. Gloucester likes cotton. So that's this location right here. Now the other tile is a blank, so they're not going to purchase anything, but they'll buy cotton here. And if you have 5 cottons all ready to sell, you can sell all 5 in one turn. There's some conditions there, but as long as you got cotton, you can sell them here. This last location, Shrewsbury, they'll take anything. They'll take the cotton, they'll take the manufacturing goods, and this last icon right here, that kiln, that's a pottery kiln. I will almost certainly call it a pottery barn, just because I do. They'll also take that there. But if you note, the pottery cannot be sold at these 2 locations. It's only here. Okay, we got a deck of cards right here. And I've already set up the deck for a 2-player game. If you were playing with 3 players, you would add cards up in this area, and if you were playing with 4, you would add the cards in this area. I'm taking those cards out of the deck. They're not part of it. I'm just going to give these cards a good shuffle. And I think that's pretty good for what we're trying to do here. I'll give it one more. Okay, good. Those are the cards. We're going to deal those out in just a little bit. We've got to get the player board set up. Before we do that, though, I just want to mention these other cards here. I think these are called scouting cards. And one of the actions you can do is collect these cards. And what you would do is you would turn in 3 cards and then take 2 of these, bring these into your hand. When you play these cards, you're not going to play them in the normal discard area. You're going to place them back in this area right here. There are a total of 2 of each type of card, and we'll talk about the different types here. There's 2 of each, and that's because there's 2 players. If there are 4 players, you would have 4 of these cards. You are allowed to have 1 set in your hand at a time. And if you're ever in a situation where you have 1 card in your hand still, you can't go back to a scout action and take 2 cards. Okay, so we'll talk about the scouting action in a little bit. But first, or next, I should say, we need to talk about the player boards. That's a big part of the game right there. So the player boards are set up, so it's split up into different sections. And each player has their own player board, and it's split up into different sections with, say, manufacturing goods. Not say, these are manufacturing goods. The location where you're going to place your tiles here, your cotton factories, your kilns for pottery, iron, coal, and then the last section is for beer. There are different types of tiles for the different types of goods. And I've grabbed the tiles for the gold player, and you can see here, starting with this setup, we've got different levels of coal production or coal mines, starting with the Roman numeral 1, lowest level. There's 2 of the 2s, 2 of the 3s, and 2 of the 4s. So when we go to the player board, and each player will take care of this themselves, they're going to place the tiles in the appropriate location. So I've got a 1 Roman numeral coal. I'm going to place that there. I've got 2 2s, place those there, 2 3s, and then last but not least, 2 4s. So the board is split up like this for all of those types of goods, cotton, beer, pottery, iron, and then finally coal. These are the locations where you're going to be placing each one of those goods. On the board itself, you'll see here it's got some symbology. So on the left-hand side, it's going to have a white circle with a number in it. That's your cost in cash. So this costs £5 to build this one. On the other side, we'll talk about this symbol in just a little bit. On the right-hand side, it's going to tell you this is what you get for it. And anytime you see this hexagon symbol, this is the symbol for victory points. It's the symbol that's found on the, well, you'll see it all over the place. On the board itself, we've got the symbol right here, we've got it here, and then every time we flip over one of these tiles, you'll see the victory points, these symbols right here, and then victory points right there. So hexagons, black hexagons are victory points. So on the right-hand side, it tells you this is what you're going to get when you can flip this tile over. Flipping the tile over, it depends on the type of tile, but say if it's manufactured goods, pottery, or cotton, it's going to be selling to one of the markets. When you sell to one of the markets, you'll flip the tile over and you'll get the benefit. Victory points for the intermediate scoring or the endgame scoring. This symbol, the white arrow pointing up, indicates how much your income gets boosted for having this tile flipped over. And then finally, this is the link bonus. So if you have, during intermediate and in the game scoring, if you have a connection marker here, where you have a tile and it's flipped over, you'll actually score. So what I mean is this right here. So if we're doing the canal phase, if I have this canal here, I will actually score 2 victory points for that. Now, if there's industry located here and industry located in these locations, this connection is connected to both of these two cities. You're going to score all of those. We're going to get into this in more detail when we talk about the intermediate scoring. I just want to explain what all this symbology is on the board here. So left-hand side, cost, cash, and then potentially resources. So for example, if we look at the pottery, if I put the level 1 right here, costs 17 to build, that's a lot, and also an iron cube. So you'll have to turn in an iron cube. If there's not one on the board someplace, you can come to the market and purchase one. In this case, it would cost an additional 2, so it costs 19 to build this. When you purchase from the market here, you'll just toss that cube off the board, and then, like I say, pay, in this case, a total cost of 17. For some resources or for some industries, there may be 2 cubes of the same type or 2 different cubes that will be part of the cost as well. So when you're building an industry, you pay the cost in cash and resources, in this case, cubes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the tiles on this board, and I'm just going to do it real quickly here. But it's pretty straightforward. You just follow the iconography. So in this case, breweries right here, and there's going to be 2 breweries for each of the first 3 levels, and then for the last level, there's only 1 that's available in the game. You must build when you're building with the lowest level technology for that particular item. So if you want to build a brewery at the beginning of the game, you must build a level 1 unless you do some innovation and take care of this. And there's we'll talk about what that means in just a little bit. So you can remove these guys, and now your level 2 becomes the lowest. So whatever's the lowest one is the next one you can build. And let's get the rest of these tiles on the board. Okay, so this board has been completed. I've got everything I need here. I'm going to bring this board off to the side. There's some other markers for this player. We've got the player marker. That's going to come over to this location. We're going to place it in the second location because the gold player is going to be the second player, but this other player is going to be first. At the beginning of the game, this guy will be second. We've got the connection markers. And these are shown here. On one side, you've got boats for canals. On the other side, you got the railroads. You're only going to do 1 for each phase at the beginning of the game. We're doing canals, so we'll keep all of them on the boat side. If you see a railroad sitting there or a locomotive sitting there during the canal phase, it's just because I missed it, and it should be flipped over for a boat. So there's no real penalty, it's just stylistic. Okay, we've got 2 markers here. I mentioned already that the hexagons refer to victory points, and that's consistent throughout the entire game. We're going to start with 0 victory points, so it goes on this track. Outer track is victory points. And then the inner track, it's right here, is where we're going to put our income. At the beginning of the game, we have 0 income. So that's where our 2 markers are going to set. Okay, let's go ahead and get set up for the other player. We're going to do that super fast. And then we're going to be ready to actually talk about the rules of the game then, which we've already kind of covered to some degree, but we're going to get into it in detail. So let's, before I go any further, let's go ahead and get the other player set up, and we'll do that right now. Okay, so we are set up now for both of our players. let's go through the actions of the game and cover all the rules. Again, I don't think it's going to take that long. Okay, so we're back and we've got our board set up for, at least the player board set up for the 2-player game, silver player, gold player. We've got our market set up here with coal and iron. Beer is not on the board yet, although let's go ahead and do that right now. We can go ahead and place the beer. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take 1 beer barrel for each market that's available to sell goods or purchase good. And so I see one here. I'll place one at this location. I won't place one here. I'll place one at this location, and I'll place one at this location. The beer here can be used by the players during the sell action, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. When this action is taken, the sell action is taken at this particular location, this beer is consumed, it's removed from the board, and a bonus is awarded. We'll talk about what the bonuses are in just a little bit. So we've got this beer that's on the board already. There's going to be additional beer when we start building the breweries. Okay, so the manual for the game is actually quite short. It's full of lots of figures, and I actually provide some historical context as well. First 2 pages are in fact the figures of the time period, and the pictures that we see on these tiles represent the folks that they talk about here in the first part. So we've got historical figures to talk about the Industrial Revolution in the Black Country. You can see here that the pages are full of images and not a lot of text, but there's just not a lot of need for a lot of text in the game itself. We're going to set this aside. There are a couple player aids that we're going to be used during the game as well. On one side, and so they're double-sided. On one side, you've got the list of cards for each city location for 2, 3, and 4 player. I don't use this very often. I probably should if I was a really good player. But on the back side, we've got the this description of the how to play the game, and this is sufficient. This player aid. We're going to go through it together and use it to teach how to play the game. So each player is going to have a hand of 8 cards, and let's see here. I'm just going to grab 8 cards off the top of the deck. I guess we'll have to reshuffle here. Okay, so these are the 8 cards that I'm going to use just for an example of how to play the game. And the cards are split up. Okay, they should be split up as to be either city cards or industry cards. And let me go ahead and fix the hands so that I've got cards of each type here. So I'm going to get rid of these 2 right here. Set these aside. Okay, so when you're dealt a hand of cards, they're going to be a mixture of location cards or industry cards. I've got a couple here for our example, and I've got these location cards. And the location cards are just like the name implies. It will list a city or give you a city location. For example, this location is Dudley. It's gold, so it kind of tells you where to look on the map if you want to see where it is. And we see that Dudley is located right here. If I were to play this card, I can use it to target Dudley to be able to do something there, or I could just play this card as a way of expending 1 card. Every action you take in your turn, and each turn will have 2 actions, every action requires you to spend a card to put it in your own personal discard pile. And it's going to be sitting right here for the gold player and up here for the silver player. So we'll have 2 discard piles, 1 for each player. Every action requires a card to be spent. There are certain actions, let me say it a different way. There are actions that require specific cards to be spent for you to be able to take that action. Other actions don't require any particular card to be played. Any card would do. Okay, let's go ahead through the 6 different actions that you can take on your turn. For example, if you want to build a link from one location to another, for you to do that, you must spend a card. Any card will do. Let's pick our card, Dudley, and we'll spend that one for this example only. to build a connection, you're going to choose a location on the board where you want that location to be built. At the beginning of the game, for the first action, any position on the board that can take a canal is an allowable build. Afterwards, you must build on a network location or someplace connected to a network. And we'll talk about what that means in just a little bit. But let's say this is our first action and we want to build a canal. I'm going to discard, in this example, one card. In this case, it's Dudley. I'm going to pick a location where I want the canal to be built. And let's say pick this location right here. I'm going to place a canal marker at that position. And then I'm going to have to pay for it. What's the cost of building a canal? It's actually written right here on the side of the board. In the first era, the canal era, a link, you can only build one link at a time, one canal per card discarded, and they cost 3 each. What's interesting in this game is that each player will start with 17 pounds, and let's go ahead and get that set up for the first player. So in this example, we've got 10, 15, 17. So this player is set for starting cash. And let's go ahead and do it for the other player as well while we're here. I would actually recommend, instead of taking the 5, to take 5 singles. And you'll see why in just a little bit. So I've got a 10 and 7, and we'll do the same thing for this player. Okay. So we've got a total of 17 pounds to begin with for the gold player, the player that's playing the canal here in this example. The cost is going to be 3. We've got 3 pounds. We are not going to pay that money to the bank. Instead, we're going to be setting that next to our marker in this location. If there's 4 players, you'd have 4 different markers and 4 different locations with coins. In this example, we're only going to have 2 players. So we only need the 2 spots. So in the first turn, the very first action, the first round I should say, each player only gets 1 action. Every other turn of the game, you'll get 2 actions. So if this was the first round, first action, gold would be done. With an expenditure of 3, we need to keep track of that. The reason is, the turn order for next round is inversely related to how much money is spent. Another way of saying it, probably the simpler way of saying it, is saying whoever spends the least amount of money goes first. If the 2 players are tied, let's say in this example, silver player also spent 3 and we're assessing who goes first, turn order doesn't change. It stays just the way it is. So ties and less money spent by silver means that silver will play again first next round. But if in this example, let's say they spent 5, we would then at the end of the round collect all the coins that were spent, then send them to the bank, and then reorder based on who spent the least. That person goes first. Okay. So in this example, we are demonstrating or showing the process of building a canal. Okay. Remember, you must discard a card. The identity of the card does not matter. Pick the location, connect it to your network. First action, it can be anywhere. Spend the amount of money, in this case 3 for building a canal. Place it next to your marker, and then that turn is done. Now, in a subsequent turn, let's say we're in the next turn, round 2 or turn 2, I could then do another action. I could, in fact, discard another card. In this example, I'm discarding Burton-on-Trent. I'm going to place it here. And let's say I want to build another canal. I must build on my network. If we look here, I've got a canal here, which means my network includes Shrewsbury and Coldbrooksdale. So these 2 cities are connected as part of my network. I can build another canal either at this location here or this location here. Let's say we want to move straight across the map here, and I build this location. What's the cost? 3. So I get 3 more pounds and I stack them on there. So in this particular turn, I did 2 actions. First one, build a canal. Second one, build another canal. My turn is done. Okay, we just saw how to build on your network. Canals in the first phase and then railroads in the second phase. We're gonna see that with railroads, it's a little bit more complicated. There's some extra steps to go through, but we'll see that in that era. But for canals, we must connect to a network that we have. When it's time to build, where we take a tile from our player board and move it onto the main board here, there's some options and we got some flexibility here. So for example, if this is my current board state with my current network shown, I've got a canal connected here to here as well. So I've got 2 canals connecting these 3 cities. All 3 of these cities are on my network. And let's go ahead and take a look at building a building. So to be able to do that, I've got one of 2 major options. The first one is to play the location where I want to build. I'm going to do that one first. So I'm going to play Coldbrookdale. That's the card that I'm playing, which allows me to target this location for building. What am I going to build? Well, I've got some options. I could build a mine, because that's what's allowed here. I could build an ironworks. I could build an ironworks at this location, or I could build a brewery. In this example, I'm going to build an ironworks. So I'm going to come to my player board, and I'm going to see that the cost for a level 1 ironworks, because that's the next one that's available, is 5 pounds and 1 coal. I look to the board. Do I have coal anywhere on the board that I can purchase or take for this use? And the answer is no. There is no coal anywhere for me to take. But I do have a canal connected to the market, which allows me to purchase coal from here. The cost is 1. I'm going to remove that cube because I'm going to spend that one or use that one for my building. It's going to cost me 1 to do that, plus the cost of 5. My total cost for building this round is 6. 5 for the building and 1 for the coal. Coal has been removed from the market, and now I can place the ironworks. If there are 2 or more locations for a particular type of industry, you must pick the single one first. I can't preferentially place my ironworks here if this one is not covered up. So I place it here. I paid for everything that I need to pay for, but now I'm going to take cubes from off the board in the supply, and I'm going to place the number of cubes that are shown on this tile, in this example 4. I'm going to place them right on that tile. Immediately I'm going to look at the market for iron, because that's the iron resource, and I'm going to see that there are 2 spots available for iron to be sold. I'm going to take 2 cubes, move them to this market, and it's level 1, or I should say 1 pound each. So I'm going to get 2 pounds from the bank, which I'm going to add to my supply and place it directly over here. I can use that money for my next action. Okay, so that's building an iron. There's a note I should make right now for the canal phase. When you're building tiles at a particular location, you are limited to 1 industry per location on the board. You see that in Birmingham, there's actually 4 spots here. In the first phase, you can only build 1 industry. That's not 1 type of industry, it's 1 industry total. So if I built an iron works at this location in Birmingham, I can't then build manufactured goods or cotton mill. So I'm limited to 1 industry per location. So in the canal phase, I would be done with Coldbrookdale. There's nothing else I can do there. Okay, let's then look at what I'm going to do for my second action, because I now have 13 pounds left, the 2 that I just received for selling my iron, and then I've got 10 left over from before. Now the other way that I can build in a location is I can play an industry card for a city that's on my network. Remember, I can't build in Coldbrookdale because there's already something built here, but I can build in Wolverhampton. I have this coal mine card, and Wolverhampton is shown right here. Well, I don't have to have the Wolverhampton card, even though I do have that card. So I have some options here. If I want to build a coal mine, I could either use Wolverhampton card or the coal mine card. In this example, I'm going to use the coal mine card. The location is Wolverhampton because it's on my network. It's connected. And I'm just going to look at my cost now. It's £5 straight up. That's the cost. There's no other resources needed. So I can build my coal. I'm going to discard this card. The cost is 5. I'm going to go to the bank and get change. 2 5s. And I'm going to pay for my coal mine by turning in £5 and stacking it on top of what I've spent already. And I'm going to take 2 coal, because I have 2 cubes shown on this tile. I'm going to place it on my mine. If my mine is connected to the market, and it is, I can immediately sell my coal to that market. In this example, I've got 2 cubes of coal. There are 2 spots available. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to get £2 from the bank. And notice here I have a tile that had cubes on it, but it doesn't have cubes on it anymore. When it comes to the resource tiles, that's coal, iron, and beer, when you remove the last good from the tile, this industry is now exhausted. So I'm going to flip this tile over and immediately get some benefits, and then have benefits available for me for scoring as well. The immediate benefit, the arrow that's pointing up. This is the boost for my income, how much my income goes up. And I'm sorry, these markers should be right here. So at the beginning of the game, our income is 10, which corresponds to 0 coins, or an income of 0. But I'm going to see a boost of 4, and this is the gold player. So I'm going to count up from 10, up 4, and go to 14. And we can see that my token now is sitting next to the 2 income, which means that I will collect £2 at the end of every round. That's my income for that round, because I have flipped over one of my tiles. Okay, so that action, we actually got to see a lot of different things here, but the key thing here is when you're building industries, you either build using a location card or build using an industry card. Let me show you one more thing here. And let's double check. Yeah, okay, this is perfect. I'm going to cheat just a little bit and take a little bit more cash because I just need some for this example. If we are continuing with building, I can also do something like this. The card I'm going to play is Birmingham. If you notice, Birmingham is not on my network, not right now. But I can play a card onto Birmingham as long as I've got the resources and the money to be able to do so, because I've got the card that allows me to build on Birmingham. So I'm going to discard Birmingham. I'm going to pick the location. It's right here. And I'm going to choose the industry tile. In this example, I'm going to choose the cotton mill. I'm going to place it right here. Okay, how can I do that? Well, if you take a look at your cotton mill, it only requires 12 pounds. So in this example, I've got 12 pounds. I'm going to place that on my ever increasing stack of coins that I spent this round. There are no resource requirements for a cotton mill to be built. So now I have built in this location. This is important for a couple of reasons. It allows me to build in a new location, starts a network or expands my network and spreads my network in a discontinuous fashion. If you notice, there's no canals linking it, but this is now part of my network. I can build out from here on these connections and start working from this point as well. Okay, so that is allowable. So when you're building, you can build on your network by playing a card, representing that town in your network. You can play a town card or location card and build outside your network as long as you've got all the resources for it. And then lastly, you can build using an industry card on your network itself, because with the industry cards, there are no locations. So the requirement is then you've got to build on your network as long as you've got a spot available. Let's talk a little bit about the differences between coal, iron, and beer, because they are different. They act very differently when it comes to resources and connections and how one can utilize them or get access to them. So if there is coal on the board, and let's go ahead and get the board set up for an example for this purpose. Okay, so I've kind of fixed the board up a little bit. If you take a look, this is my network right now. I've got my cotton mill over here. I've got my 2 canals, and I've got my coal, but the coal has 1 coal on it, okay? When you build a mine and there's a spot available, you must sell the coal to the mine if you're connected to one of the markets. If you're not connected to a market, the coal sits on the tile. Okay, let's say we want to build the iron mill at this location. Previously, we're going to do the same thing again because I do have an iron mill. Okay, so I've got options. So I can either play the Coal-Brookdale card or the iron mill card to get this industry built, because I've got Coal-Brookdale in my network. In this example, I'm going to use the Coal-Brookdale card, and I'm going to go ahead and build the iron mill at this location. The cost is going to be 5, and let's go ahead and take a 5, add it to our stack of coins there. And remember, we also have to spend a coal, but in this example, we've got a coal on our network. It's actually connected here. So that allows us to take this coal, flip this tile over. We flipped over a tile, our income boosts up 4. In this case, it goes to 18, and our income will now be 4 at the end of the round. And we've got our 4 iron cubes that we're going to place on the mill, just like before. We're going to take a look at the market. Can you fill in any spots? Yeah, we can. So we're going to turn in these 2 cubes and get 2 pounds. Okay, so coal must be on a network. Let's twist the scenario around just a little bit and get the board reset up, and I'm going to show you what you can do with somebody else's coal. Okay, so it's my turn again. Here's our setup now. Silver player has a couple connections and a coal mine here with coal sitting on it. I want to build the iron mill at this location. I've got options. In this example, I'm going to go ahead and use the industry card. This allows me to build an iron mill anywhere that I have, anywhere in my network. I can't build it here because I already have industry in this location, so I can't here. I'm not actually connected to Wausau. Silver is connected here. I'm not, so this is not part of my network. Wolverhampton is, but there's no place for an iron mill to be built, so that leaves me with Coal-Brookdale. This is the only place I can build it. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Coal-Brookdale card to build my iron mill here. Cost is 5, as we've seen before. Here we go. I'm going to spend 5, and I need to find a coal. There's coal actually sitting right next to me, but it's on the silver card. Doesn't matter. It's sitting next to me. The closest location for coal, doesn't matter who the player is, you can take that coal and use it. Now, I've taken the last coal from this card. I'm going to flip it over. There's 4 bumps for income. It's pretty standard for level 1 coal, but that goes to the silver player. So their income actually gets boosted to 2. In this example, I'm going to go ahead and place my 4 cubes there, just like I have before. And now I've got 4 cubes here. Like before, I can sell them to the market, get my £2 for doing so, and then my turn, or that part of my turn, is done. So when it comes to resources, coal must be connected to your network. If you need coal cube to do something, it must be connected. You can build towards coal and then use the coal that you connect to. So for example, if I need to build in this location and it requires coal, I can go build that connection there and then get access to the coal. That's going to be more important for the rail phase than it is here. But you can build towards a connection to make the link and then pay for the coal after you've already established the link. When it comes to iron, iron is freely available across the board. You can get iron from anywhere. So if my opponent had an iron mill way up here in Derby in this example, and I wanted to spend some iron but not my own, so this is the example I'm going to give you. There's iron in this location, and if I build up towards this direction here, this iron mill is closer than mine. I can take iron from here in case I need, or for whatever reason I need to take iron. So iron does not have to be connected to your network. It could be anywhere on the board and you can get access to it, including the market. So iron is always available in the game if you've got the cash for it. So you either can take it from a industry tile that's on the board, or you can purchase it from the external market. Okay, beer is the hybrid. Beer is the one that's strange. Okay, we've got this example now where there's beer located here at this location, Wasal, and that's from our opponent, the silver player. Gold player has beer right here. If you notice, it's not connected to anything. When it comes time to using beer, if it's your beer, you can take it from anywhere on the board if it's your beer. Okay, so for example, this is accessible by me. I can always get this beer, even though it's not connected to anything, but my opponent cannot because they don't have any links to it. When it comes to my opponent's beer, if it's connected by a network, and if you notice here, here's my network, it ends at Wolverhampton. My opponent's network starts at Wolverhampton and stretches all the way to Birmingham, including Wasal, which means I can take this beer. Okay, when it comes to networks, it doesn't have to be just your own network tiles. It can be anybody's. So in this example, if I needed that beer right there for whatever action I want to do, I can take it. And I can also take my beer as well. But remember, if I take this beer from my opponent, I'm going to take the last one, I'm going to flip this tile over, he's going to get a boost in his income, just like before. Okay, so that's the way the three resources work. Coal must be on a network. Iron doesn't matter. No matter where it is, you can get access to it. And then beer is a hybrid. If it's your beer, any place is accessible. If it's your opponent's beer, it must be on a network. Okay, so we've just covered the actions of build and networking. Building is probably the most complicated aspect of the game. And it is complicated because of the differences in the resources, the accessibility of resources, and what kind of limitations you have. Remember, the key thing here, on your network, you can use either location cards or industry cards. For outside of network, as long as the resources are available, you just have to have that location there to be able to build something. Let's do loans. Loans are really simple. So for a loan, you are going to take one of your cards, discard it, doesn't matter what one you take. You're going to immediately move your income marker, and this is my income marker right here, to the next lower section, the top position. That's the first step. And then you're going to move down 2 more steps just like that to the top position in the location. So you can see they're kind of grouped together here in pairs. Over here, they're in triplets. And you can see I think it goes up to four spots for each income position. So my income was at 18, where I get 4 coins at the end of each round. But after I take a loan, it drops down to a 12, which means I only get 1 income for the end of the round. But the trade-off is you get $30 from the bank. You just get it. Do you have to pay it back? Nope. Never do, because you've already taken a hit in your income, and that's how the game handles loans. Income goes down, you get a chunk of money, you never have to worry about paying it off. This is your money. Run with it, have fun with it, do all sorts of stuff. You will be taking loans in the game. It's important to take loans early. Give yourself a lot of cash. Your income is, well, it starts at 0, right? And even if you can get a few tiles flipped over to boost up your income, at the end of each round, you're only going to get in maybe 4 or 5 pounds, which doesn't really buy you that much. So loans are key. And the key thing here with loans is you drop down 3 steps for your income. And if I started here, this position 12, which gives me 1 income, I'm going to drop down 3 steps if I'm going to take a loan right now. I'm going to drop down to 0, or the 10 position, and then 1, 2. I'm down to 8. My income is now -2. We'll talk about income in just a little bit, but it means I'm going to have to be paying the bank at the end of each round when I collect my income. I won't be collecting income. I have to actually pay. Okay, so that's loans. You must discard a card, and then you are able to take a loan. We've kind of talked about building locations on the board. Let's take a look at scouting cards. Scouting cards are actually really powerful, and it's definitely an action that you're going to want to consider to do once in a while. So there's 2 different kind of cards. This card here is an any location card. So if I take this card in my hand, and let's talk about the action first. How do you take a scout action? So I'm going to discard a card, and then I have to throw away 2 cards as well. So 3 cards are going to be lost from my hand. If you only have 2 cards in your hand, you can't take a scout action because you need to get rid of 3 cards. And then you're going to take 2 cards back in your hand. The net result is you're 1 card fewer than you started with. But that's what you would normally do. Any action you do, you're always discarding 1 card. So I've got my 3 cards. I just discarded 1 and I threw away 2 other cards. And now I have these cards in my hand. This first card right here is an any location card. I can point to the board and say, this card is Tamworth, or this card is Stafford, whatever it is. So that's the first thing you do. When you play this card and use it for any location on the board, you're going to discard it over here. You're not going to put it in this pile. Why? It's because we need to get these cards back in this stack for the next time somebody wants to take that action. This other card is an any industry card. Cotton, iron, manufactured goods, coal, pottery, and then finally beer are all represented on this card. If you are in your network and you want to build another industry and you just don't have the card for it, you do now. This allows you to do it because this allows you to build any industry. Okay, let's now talk about develop, which is another one of the actions that we can do on our turn. And with develop, what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at the board tiles that you have on your board, home board, and you're going to eliminate them. You're going to eliminate the lowest level tile that you have for a particular section. You're going to have to spend a card. You discard your card, and then you can choose 1 or 2 tiles to remove from the board. There is one limitation. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but let's say we want to eliminate this lowest level beer because we'd like to get a level 2 beer out as quickly as possible. So the way that we do that is we move this tile off, but there is one cost, and the cost is 1 cube of iron. We can take it from anywhere on the board that we have access to. We've got our own iron right here. Let's just remove it. That's cost of 1, and we remove this tile. It is out of play. We cannot build that one anymore, but now we have access to level 2. Let's go ahead and do it a second time, because remember we can do 1 or 2 tiles. We'll take another iron cube off, and I want to get rid of my level 1 coal in this example. So I don't have to take away the same, but I can. And in this example, I've taken 1 beer level 1 and 1 level 1 coal and removed it from the game at the cost of 2 iron. And then of course you always have to play a card. Okay, there is one limitation for this. There's one major limitation, and that is, if you notice here on your pottery kilns, they have this symbol right here, the light bulb with a hash through it, the do not enter one. What this means is you cannot take the develop action and remove this tile from the game. The only way this tile can be removed from the game or taken off the board here is to be placed on the main player board, or the main board of the game. So the only way you can take it from the player board is to play it to the main board. So we see that here for the level 1 pottery and the level 3. You got to get them into play. And you'll probably see why during the play or the course of the game. Okay, so that's the develop action. So the last action we're going to do is sell. And for selling, what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our industry tiles. So I already showed you how, say, coal, iron, and beer get flipped over and boost up income. Well, what do you do with pottery, cotton, and your manufactured goods? You must sell them. Who do you sell them to? You sell them to the markets that are found on the periphery of the board. For example, at Shrewsbury, they want to purchase, well, they'll purchase anything, manufactured goods, pottery, or cotton. We have a cotton mill on the board right now. So let's go ahead and sell to that location. First thing I'm going to do is spend a card, because you always have to spend a card. I'm going to have to trace, using the networks that are available on the board, a line from where the cotton mill is that I want to sell to the market where that's going to be sold. And so I'm going to start here. Yep, got a connection through Wausau, got a connection through Wolverhampton, connection, Coalbrookdale, connection. Yep, so I've got the connection right now to sell at this location. The next thing I have to do is I have to consume a beer for that to happen. I see two options on the board right now. I've got my own beer up here, but in this particular example, I'm going to probably want to use this beer here. But let's talk about each scenario. So for you to sell to that location, you got to make sure that you got a connection. You got to find a source of beer. Let's choose this one right now for this part of the example. Okay, we're going to consume that beer. When you consume beer from one of these locations at the periphery of the board, you're going to get the bonus that's associated with that location. In this example, you see 4 inside the black hexagon. Black hexagon is victory points. So immediately gold will go up 1, 2, 3, 4 in this example and pick up 4 victory points. This is the only way you'll get victory points during the course of play. All other victory points are going to come during the intermediate scoring and then the final scoring at the end of the game. Okay, so in this example, I'm going to take 4 victory points right away. Probably a good idea. I'll show you in just a little bit how we can get more income and probably more victory points using my beer instead. Okay, so we've used my beer, we used the beer at this location. Now we're going to flip this tile over. And we can see here that we're going to get 1 victory point for connections. Any connections that are adjacent to it are going to score. So this particular boat is going to score 2 points here and 1 point here. And you say, wait a second, Ken, that's my tile. No, doesn't matter. Whatever color canal piece right here will score on any adjacent tiles. So like I said, this gray tile is going to score 3 victory points during the intermediate phase. That's part of your strategy, or should be part of your strategy. Get buildings next to where, get connections near where your opponents have buildings, and then benefit when they flip them over. So 1 victory point during intermediate phase scoring for this connection, and then 5 victory points for gold, and that's only for gold during intermediate scoring. But immediately, there's going to be a 5 bump up on the income track. So gold right now has an income of -2. Their value is 8. And we're going to add 5, goes to 13. Hey, we bumped ourselves out of, we've used that loan to build presumably this cotton mill, and now we've bumped up the income when we sold the cotton mill goods to this market. Okay, so that's one way that we can use beer. We can use the beer that's found here. Notice there is no more beer here. There will not be beer here again until the start of the rail phase. So it's one and done for this bonus. This bonus down right here allows you to take one develop action where you remove a tile from the board. Same restrictions when it comes to pottery. You can't remove this tile, but you can remove something else. And then this last location gives you a boost of 2 income to whatever you get for your selling the goods. So if I was able to sell the cotton here, I know I can't because it's manufactured goods, but let's say I could in this example, I would see a bump of 5 for my income and then an additional 2. But this would be a one and done. When I do that, that beer is gone then. So the other thing I can do, and I just reset up the board here, I'm going to do a sell action. I played my card. I'm going to sell this cotton mill to this location. That part doesn't change. What I need to do is find a source of beer. I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use this one instead. And so I use my own beer. Remember, beer that's mine doesn't have to be on the network. So I can take this guy, flip it over, because I consume that beer. I can flip over this guy. I'm going to see +4 and 5 or 9 bumps on my income. In this example, it's going to go up to 22. My income is now at 6 pounds during the intermediate or during the end round. And then I'm also going to see 4 victory points and 5 or 9 victory points towards the end of the game, or end intermediate scoring and final scoring as well. Okay, so that's the selling goods. Okay, so we've covered all the actions that we can do. We've done, and I'm just going to read them off right here. Build, that's building industry on the tiles on the board. Networking, develop, sell, loan, and then finally scout. Let's go ahead and do the end round cleanup and get set up for the next round. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the turn order. I'm going to see how that is going to be impacted by the amount of money each player spent. In this example, 1, 2, 3, 4. Silver has spent 4 and gold has spent 3. Person who spent the least gets bumped up. Person who spent more gets bumped down. If it's a tie, order stays the same. All this money goes into the bank. There's no reason to keep it at this point. But then we're going to look at income. And in this example, gold is going to pick up, they're at 22 right now, so they're going to pick up 6 pounds. This is going to go into their supply. It's going to be available for them next round. In this example, silver is going to pick up 2. Same deal. There's the 2 coins that silver gets. Okay, we are ready now to play the next round of action. I will note this as well. I mentioned before that you get 2 actions for every turn that you take. You're going to discard 1 card, do an action, discard another one, do an action. At the beginning of the game, the least number of cards you're going to have in your hand is 6. You're going to immediately draw 2 cards at the end of your turn. So your hand will always be at 8 at the beginning because you're going to start with 8 cards, play 2 of them, draw 2 at the end of your turn. When this deck is depleted, then you'll be stuck with 6 cards at the end of 1 turn. The next turn will be 4 cards, and then 2, and then finally no cards. And then that's when you're going to do your intermediate scoring. And then during the rail phase, that's when you're going to be doing the end game scoring. So if we're going to do our intermediate scoring right now, we'll just briefly go through it. We'll make it nice and simple. We've got the 2 players right here. In this example, what we're going to do is pick 1 player first, and let's pick silver and take a look at their connections first. So we're going to take a look at this connection right here, and it's between these 2 cities, and we're going to count the hexagons with that connection symbol in it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to remove this connection and give silver 4 points. And then we're going to come here, and silver silver is adjacent with this connection to 3 more connections, so they're up to 7. This connection comes off. Gold, if you see here, there's actually 2 connections at this market, so that's 1, 2. This tile's not flipped over. So the tile's not flipped over, so there's no points for that. So for this connection, gold gets 2. And then for this connection, again, no points, 2 points. So gold goes up to 8 and this connection comes off. Let's go back to silver and take a look at the silver actual industry points. How many do they get? So I'm looking at these 2 tiles for silver. There's no tile, or this tile is not flipped over. So I can see 4 victory points, total 5 victory points. So let's go ahead and do that for silver, up to 12. And these are level 1 buildings. Level 1 buildings are removed during this phase, taken off the board. Now for gold, I see a level 1 building here for 5 and another one for 4, so a total of 9. These buildings are removed, but they get 9 points, up to 17. And then I can see for both players, they have level 1 ironworks. Well, level 1 buildings are removed from the board. Doesn't matter if they're flipped or not, these are lost. So it's really important if you have a level 1 building on the board to get it flipped over before the intermediate scoring, because if it goes into intermediate scoring without being flipped over, you're not going to get any points for it. So this one goes away, and same deal, these resources go away, and this tile goes off the board as well. So at the beginning of the next phase, you can see here, the board is completely blank again. So we're gonna have a clean slate when we start playing in the rail phase, where 8 cards to start off with, play a card, put either industry or connection down on the board, and go from there. There's some strategies that we're gonna be talking about leading up to or at the end of the canal phase, leading into the railroad phase. We'll definitely be talking about that when we get to the playthrough. But I think we've got everything that we need to be able to play the game. And to tell you the truth, I think this is where I'm going to stop the video for today. The video went a little bit longer than I thought. I think I just talked too much about this board game. I like it so much. So we're going to end our video here today. I think I mentioned in the intro that we're going to go ahead and do a playthrough, but we'll stop it here. And in the next video, we're going to pick up with the actual playthrough, starting with the first action. We'll go ahead and get the board all cleaned up and everything set up to actually play the game. So thank you so very much for watching the video. Definitely stick around for the next one. The playthrough, I hope, is going to be really interesting for you. This is, like I said before, a fantastic game. It's just wonderful. The strategy and the thinking about stuff, the networks and how they interplay off of each other, just makes it really, really an entertaining and brain-burning type game. So definitely one that you want to check out. And then we haven't really even got to the rail phase, which takes it up another notch. So it makes it very interesting. So like I said, I'll stop right there. I think we'll pick up next time. Thank you so very much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Comments and suggestions are always appreciated. If you want to make a comment below about playing this game or interest in playing this game, something about the video itself you want to talk about, that's fine too. Whatever, certainly appreciated. So I think at this point I probably can say goodbye, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.